What if the next king wasn't chosen by bloodline or war, but by kindness? In a world where crowns are earned through power, one ruler dares to ask, who loves people enough to wear the crown? Would you surrender your only chance at greatness just to help a stranger? What if your one shot at the throne came with a moral dilemma, your dream? Or give away everything to someone with nothing? Can the soul of a leader be seen not in his speech, but in a silent act of compassion? One man's journey to the palace becomes a timeless parable about love, sacrifice, and the kind of heart that changes nations. The King's Disguise, a test of the heart. Once upon a time, in a distant land of mountains and rivers, of fertile fields and quiet temples, there lived a king, known not only for his wisdom, but for his deep silence. People said he could see into your heart just by how you walked, how you greeted a stranger, how you looked at the poor. But this king carried a quiet sorrow. He had no heir, no prince to take his place, and he knew the throne could not simply go to the strongest warrior or the richest noble. Power is easy to find, he often said, but love, true love for others, is the rarest jewel in the world. So one day, the king made a bold announcement. It spread like wildfire. To all young men of this kingdom, if your heart burns with love for your fellow man, if your hands are ready to serve not only the rich but also the poor, then come. I will choose my successor, not by lineage, but by love. Villages erupted in hopeful chatter. Sons of merchants, farmers, and scholars all dreamed of the golden crown. Tailors were busy. Horses were groomed. Roads filled with hopeful travelers dressed in their best. But far in the mountain valleys, in a village where even the birds sang softer, a poor young man read the king's notice. He had no land, no family title, but his heart, it had carried children through storms, shared food with strangers, and comforted the dying. He looked at his worn sandals, his rough hands, his clothes with too many stitches. What king would look at me, he whispered, but something in his spirit whispered back, go. He worked by moonlight. He chopped firewood, cleaned animal stalls, did every odd job he could find. Slowly, coin by coin, he gathered just enough money to buy decent clothiza tunic of simple but clean cloth, a pair of shoes, and a satchel of dried bread and fruit for the journey. Finally, he began walking miles and miles, across rivers and rocks, through heat and cold, driven not by ambition, but by a strange peace. On the 5th day, near the edge of a dense forest, he saw something that made him stop in his tracks. A mano, more bones than man, lay on the roadside. His eyes were sunken, his lips cracked, his body trembling under torn cloth. He looked up with desperate eyes and croaked, please, help me. I'm so cold. I haven't eaten in days. The young man's heart twisted. He looked at his new tunic, the food he'd packed so carefully, the journey still ahead, and he knew if he gave the man his clothes and food, he would reach the palace dirty, starving, and unworthy by royal standards. He might not even be allowed past the gate. But how could he ignore the suffering before him? He knelt down, gently wrapped the man in his tunic, and fed him every last bite. I may not become a king, he thought, but I can still act like one. The beggar held his hand and wept. May the heavens bless you. May your heart lead you to a fate better than gold. The young man walked the last few miles, barefoot, hungry, and shivering. When he reached the palace, the guards looked at him with suspicion. You came for the king's interview, dressed like that? But one guard, perhaps sensing something deeper, let him through. Inside, servants helped him clean off dust and mud. They offered him water, but not much more. Soon he was led into a vast hall, golden pillars rising like trees, silence heavy like a sacred forest. Then, footsteps. The king entered. The young man bowed low, trembling, but when he lifted his eyes, she froze. The king's face was familiar. Those eyes. That voice. It was him, the beggar. His mind reeled. He didn't know whether to speak, to kneel again, to flee. The king smiled. "Yes, I was the man you met on the road," he said gently. "And no, you are not mistaken." The young man's mouth opened, but no words came. "I disguised myself," the king continued, "because I had to know what was truly in your heart. If I came as a king, you might have tried to impress me, but as a beggar, you revealed your soul. You gave away your only chance to reach this throne, to help a stranger. That is why you deserve it." Tears welled in the young man's eyes, not because he was to be king, but because someone finally saw the quiet love he had always carried. The king walked toward him and placed the royal seal in his hand. A true leader doesn't rise by climbing over others. He rises by lifting them. You see, in life, power may build empires, but only love builds legacies. True greatness is not in crowns or castles, but in the quiet choices we make when no one is watching. The poorest man with the richest heart has more light than 100 palaces combined. So, when life offers you a throne, remember, the real test might be waiting on the roadside, cold and unseen. If this story awakens something in your soul, share it, speak it, carry it with you. Like, comment, and subscribe to Golden Bell Dharma, where ancient wisdom meets everyday life, and stories like this guide us inward, toward truth.